Hi, I'm Peter Chan, National Weather Service Program Lead of the Alaska Weather Show, and I have a very important change notice to share with you. The last TV broadcast of the Alaska Weather Show in the traditional sense over the airwaves will be on Saturday, June 30th. Starting on July 1st and thereafter, the National Weather Service will provide a modified web-based version of the program on a new YouTube channel. So that means you'll be able to find us. We'll be moving from @AKwx TV to @NWS Alaska, and you can go ahead and subscribe to that channel now. There will be a public comment period from May 15th through July 30th, so please send your comments or concerns to nws.service-change-comments@noaa.gov. And if you have any other questions, you may reach carrie.haisley at noaa.gov and donald.moore@noaa.gov. Thank you for your patience and understanding.
Hello and welcome to today's show. Up first, hazardous weather graphic. Here we got flood watches out for the lower Yukon River Valley into the Yukon Delta here for tonight and through tomorrow. And taking a look at the river breakup map, you can see specifically the areas there along the Yukon River, all along the Yukon River there, from the lower valley on out to the coast. Flood watches there for snowmelt and maybe ice jams as well. Otherwise, pretty open here everywhere else. Brooks Range, north of the Brooks Range there. Still pretty icy here on these two eastern rivers, Sagwan and the Kaparik, or here the Colville pretty much open. And going from there to satellite imagery, high pressure made for a very sunny day from the Pribilof Islands down to the eastern Aleutians to the Alaska Peninsula and back to the west there. Also into the southwest interior, huge area, clear skies out there. Otherwise clouds here over the southeast interior, and that's where the heaviest precipitation was today over the eastern Alaska Range, Northway, down into the eastern and central Copper River Basin. Then it kind of tapered off as you head north there, but some moisture all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast. And some showers today over the Panhandle, mostly cloudy skies, variably cloudy areas of showers south central Alaska. And another system here, more clouds dropping down from the northeast there, the upper level low here. Moving on to the western Arctic coast, and then you can see the next front out here to the west, pushing into the western Aleutians with some rain, not quite over to, well west of Adak by picture time here in the last frame there. And then a little pressure here southeast to Kodiak Island. That'll eventually bring increasing chances of rain to the Panhandle late tonight, early tomorrow morning. And on the chart today, there's that front right about there. Otherwise, the trough keeping it cloudy, cool with some showers over the Panhandle up to the North Gulf Coast. Areas of snow, especially this morning, over the Copper River Basin areas up to the northeast. Snow reported today before it changed to rain this afternoon at Northway. I believe over half an inch of precipitation fell there, and then kind of scattering out the showers on up to the north. Areas of rain and snow showers for the North Slope, Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast. Here's that next system here with the low over in the Russian Far East that'll be tracking eastward. But today, just some scattered showers over the Seward Peninsula area, northeast Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island. Had about 300s earlier today at the state airport there. And then the high pressure here making for the White Sword area clear skies. Again, for the Pribilofs, solid sun there right down to the eastern Aleutian areas into the western Alaska Peninsula. And rain starting to push eastward. Tonight should make it to Adak, maybe Atka, and then that rain will extend all the way back to the front there over the western Aleutians. And wind's not all that big of a factor out here with that system. Light variable winds under high pressure, southeast Bering Sea. Skies stay mostly clear. And Fox Island, Alaska Peninsula as well, dry into Bristol Bay. Showers diminishing here over the Kenai Peninsula and Prince William Sound. Still look for some light snow, especially the higher elevations, the Copper River Basin, and up into the southeastern part of the Tanana Valley, or just north of the eastern Alaska Range there. Also snow along this frontal boundary there from the eastern Arctic coast north slope down across the Brooks Range into Kotzebue Sound, Seward Peninsula, periods of snow as this system tracks eastward tonight into Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island. Look for snow there. And moving on to tomorrow, that low center kind of tracks northeastward, but a pretty good area of widespread light precipitation comes into the northern central interior here, keeping it cloudy, cool, and damp here over much of interior Alaska. Diminishing showers, though, over south central Alaska, Copper River Basin areas. Still look for some snow showers tomorrow, cool temperatures. And this system pushes rain possibly as far east as Nikolsky by tomorrow afternoon. Small craft advisory level winds, maybe up to 30 knots for the central Aleutians, lighter and more west-southwest behind the front there. Another possibly sunny day for the Pribilofs down across the southeast Bering Sea, still under the influence of that high pressure, kind of sagging southward a little bit there as this system comes over the top of the ridge. And the Panhandle, rain kind of increasing from south-southwest to north-northeast there throughout the day. Lighter amounts up here to the north, a little more scattered, a little more steadier, heavier precipitation along the central and south coast into Dixon Entrance area. And moving ahead to outlook for Friday, end of the week, end of the work week. Trough here keeps it cloudy with some rain and showers over much of the southeast coast. Also, still rather unsettled, but not too bad. These showers mostly over the mountainous terrain, Kenai Peninsula, Alaska Range, Copper River Basin in the afternoon hours. And that'll extend up into the Tanana Valley as well. So keeping it kind of cool and a little on the moist side here, especially out to the west and to the north. Areas of snow possible again. Brooks Range, North Slope, Arctic coast. And drier, though, for St. Lawrence Island. Big low there over the Bering Sea pushes rain now into the Alaska Peninsula. And up to the Pribilofs, look for wet IFR flying conditions there for the Pribilofs now. Areas of rain and showers pretty well widespread, westerly flow on the south side of that low center as it slowly drifts eastward there. Still holding on to some sunshine for the Kuskokwim Delta into Bristol Bay, Togiak, Alaska Peninsula area, and some sun possible for Kodiak Island. Dry conditions, light winds all through this area. In fact, pretty light winds over much of interior Alaska, as well as the Panhandle there. And fourth, lows tonight for the southeast coast in the 40s, lower 40s here. South central Alaska, 40 to 45, upper 30s for the Susitna Valley, mid 30s Copper River Basin. Also mid to upper 30s out here over the Kuskokwim Valley, and near 40 for Bristol Bay, Kodiak, lows tonight in the lower 40s. Highs tomorrow, 50 to 55 here, south central Alaska, first day of June, and upper 50s, the Copper River Basin, a lot cooler than it was a year ago on June 1st, and lower to mid 50s here for Bristol Bay, and lower 50s in the Kuskokwim Valley, mid 50s Kodiak Island, and see a 60 there, possibly for Skagway and Haines up here over the northern Panhandle. Otherwise, thicker clouds, better chances of precipitation, keeping those temperatures down in the 50s here to the south. And lows Friday morning in the 40s for the Panhandle, 30s and 40s elsewhere over southern Alaska, followed by highs, 50s, maybe lower 60s again up Lynn Canal there, Haines to Skagway, near 60 in the Copper River Basin, staying in the 50s. South central Alaska, Kenai Peninsula, near 50 in the Kuskokwim Valley there, kind of chilly for the first day of May, or for the first day of June, and mid to upper 50s for Bristol Bay, and for North Slope. Lows tonight in the 20s into the Brooks Range, even down into the northern Seward Peninsula, 30s elsewhere. Highs tomorrow, 55 to 60 eastern interior, upper 20s to lower 30s for the Seward Peninsula. Same thing for the Arctic coast and North Slope areas. Followed by lows still into the mid-20s here. North Slope, Arctic coast, call it 31 for Ambler, 25 for Anaktuvik, 20s for all of the Seward Peninsula there, and 30s to lower 40s around Fairbanks, and then back into the upper 30s for Eagle, followed by high 60 to 65 here over the extreme eastern interior. Right around 50 in the central interior, 30s out to the Arctic coast and the North Slope, northern Bering Sea. And 30s for the southwest coast and the Pribilofs, otherwise right around 40 for the lows for the Aleutians. And then the highs tomorrow, mid-40s most everywhere, near 50 front Alaska, maybe Cold Bay, and lower 40s along the southwest coast, just 35 for Savunga, and then the lows in the 30s to near 40 here for the Bering Sea, followed by highs in the...
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, some IFR, northern Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay area, northern southeast coast, otherwise marginal VFR and down to Dixon Entrance. And some IFR hanging in here from North Gulf Coast into areas of the Copper River Basin. And then some more IFR making landfall along the west coast here, Norton Sound, Seward Peninsula, up into Kotzebue Sound there. And then areas of marginal VFR with some VFR over the Arctic coast and North Slope along the Brooks Range there. And then some IFR, eastern Arctic coast and North Slope. A break here continues for the Pribilofs down to the eastern Aleutians. Big area of IFR coming in to Adak and eventually Atka. And by afternoon, that pushes just east of Atka, extending all the way back out to the west and up to the north here. Coming into the Yukon Delta, some lower conditions with that system, an upper trough moving into the west and northwest interior area. Otherwise, pretty good VFR, southeast Bering Sea, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, right on up into the south central Alaska, Kodiak Island, all VFR, and all up into the Yukon Flats, Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, North Slope Arctic coast, not looking too bad. And marginal VFR here, Prince William Sound into the eastern Matanuska Valley and portions of the Copper River Basin. And now we've just got some IFR on the south coast of the Panhandle. And for Friday morning, southern southeast coast, mostly marginal, and mostly VFR up to the north. Lower conditions with that system dragging eastward here. Bring some marginal VFR down, possibly into the Susitna Valley, definitely along the Alaska Range with some possible IFR around McKinley Park or Denali Park down to the eastern, down into the western Alaska Range here. Good VFR holds, southeast Bering Sea, but IFR onto the Yukon Delta coast, and a big area out over the Aleutians and the central and western Bering, IFR for the Brooks Range, and some more IFR. Just barely getting into the Point Hope, Cape Lisburne area up there with some VFR for the central Arctic coast. And for the afternoon, pretty good in the interior, just some areas of marginal VFR along the Brooks Range, Alaska Range, maybe down into the Talkeetnas, possibly western Prince William Sound, eastern Kenai Peninsula, VFR to the west, VFR to the east, pretty good for the Panhandle. And out here to the west, VFR until you get right along the Yukon Delta coast and a big area of IFR covering the Bering Sea. All of the Aleutians, marginal VFR into the western Alaska Peninsula. Passes Anatuvik, marginal VFR becomes IFR. Adigan, marginal VFR. And from Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, rainy VFR, windy VFR. And same forecast for Isabel and Mentasta. Eastern Alaska Range looking really good for the day tomorrow. And for Tanita, though, marginal VFR at times. And for Portage, marginal VFR. And Chilkoot and White, lower conditions to start, IFR, possibly becoming marginal VFR, maybe IFR into the late afternoon. Freezing levels, cold air up here to the north and northwest, and another branch here, 2,000 feet in over the Copper River Basin, northern Panhandle. And out to the west, a little bit warmer there, 8,000 feet out here over the west central Bering Sea. And icing, that system coming eastward here. Look for some isolated moderate rime icing, freezing level to maybe 12,000 feet here coming into the central Aleutians. And then with the system up here pushing an area of possible isolated moderate rime icing into the west and northwest interior areas there. And yet another system here, weaker, bringing a chance of some icing into the coastal areas of the Panhandle, mostly central and south coast, and in toward Dixon Entrance. Jet stream, westerlies here with this upper trough up to 95 knots there, and then takes a turn to the south, about 75 across Kodiak Island. Then back south to North Flow here, 80 knots, 9,000 feet. 45 knots out here to the west, and westerlies, give or take there, 40 to 45 35 knots into the western interior, southeast 40 for the south coast of the Panhandle. And at 3,000 feet, 40-knot winds here right along the central and south coast of the Panhandle, west-northwest 40 knots across the Yukon Delta, southerlies over the central Aleutians. Turbulence-wise, maybe some isolated moderate turbulence here for Atka Island, southwest interior areas, as well as the southern Panhandle. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
It's kind of hard to explain how important weather is to our job. I mean, it really affects everything we do.
In 2018, NOAA launches the GOES-S satellite, which takes its place in orbit as GOES-17. Working together with GOES-16, the two new geostationary weather satellites will provide constant watch over the United States and the Western Hemisphere, from the west coast of Africa all the way to New Zealand, helping monitor severe storms, wildfires, and daily weather patterns. Since its launch, NOAA's GOES-16 satellite has already demonstrated its critical capability for keeping our nation weather ready. Throughout the active 2017 hurricane season, GOES-16 delivered imagery with detail and clarity never achieved before, with 4 times greater resolution than previous NOAA satellites, and delivered this imagery faster than ever before, helping forecasters predict the path of a storm and where and when it will intensify. These accurate and timely forecasts allowed for emergency managers to prepare for evacuations, map flood areas, and save lives.
So the weather matters. The weather matters before the weather happens, and the weather matters after the event happens, because what we're able to do to prepare, allocate resources, provide information to the public through the media beforehand, and what we're able to do afterwards, how and when the waters are going to recede, so we know we can get vehicles with life-saving food and shelter equipment down a particular highway. All of that depends on the forecast.
In the GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to provide critical data for the westernmost United States, Alaska, and Hawaii.
We're talking about getting data updates in just seconds, so we can quickly spot wildfires and closely monitor the wind direction and their intensity. The crispness of the data coming in at a faster rate will also help with fog forecasts. We can see the moment the stratus starts to develop or when it starts to move out.
Like GOES-16, GOES-17 carries a suite of advanced instruments, including tools for sophisticated earth sensing, lightning detecting, solar imaging, and space weather monitoring. As an equal partner in the sky, GOES-17 will expand coverage of the advanced baseline imager technology across the Pacific Ocean, allowing meteorologists and local officials to see severe weather systems developing in real time.
So instead of seeing something, say, this large, that as you zoom in actually gets kind of blurry, you're actually going to see something that is much more detailed.
In its GOES West position, GOES-17 will be able to monitor conditions in the western U.S. like wildfires, coastal fog, and atmospheric rivers when storms from the Pacific dump heavy rain and snow over the western U.S. GOES-17 will have a major impact on fighting wildfires in California. Up-to-the-minute information in crisp detail allows forecasters to spot fires faster than ever before, even before the first 911 calls come in, and to better track and predict the path of large, dynamic, and dangerous fires.
It's amazing to see what we can get and at the level of detail and the speed that we can get the information down into the ground that makes our decision making way more accurate.
With a view of the Pacific Ocean, GOES-17 will also provide a critical eye over shipping lanes vital to the U.S. economy, protecting cargo and passenger vessels from dangerous ocean storms. GOES-17 will also provide a high-definition view over Alaska, resulting in better weather forecasts and improved monitoring of sea ice, wildfires, and volcanic ash. The advanced baseline imager on GOES-17 can distinguish between clouds, sea ice, and snow cover, a critical need during Alaska's dark, cloudy winter months. GOES-17's geostationary lightning mapper monitors lightning flashes, including the in-cloud lightning most prevalent in severe storms, helping forecasters determine when a storm is forming, intensifying, and becoming more dangerous. Thanks to GOES 17, emergency managers will be equipped with more accurate weather predictions and faster warnings, providing a real impact, saving lives, and protecting infrastructure. Watching over Earth from 22,300 miles above, GOES S will provide vital data to our weather-ready nation.
Hi, I'm JPSS. I'm a high-tech weather satellite that orbits our planet. I do something called a polar orbit. I circle the Earth from North Pole to South Pole, over and over, while the Earth spins. While I do that, I get lots of information about what's going on around the globe. I watch storms, clouds, and rain. I take the temperature of the ocean, measure air quality, ozone health, and take pictures of the land and sea. This information is used for all kinds of things. It helps us take care of our coasts and oceans and all the amazing things that live there. It helps us monitor harmful weather events like floods and droughts and measure the health of the environment. Most importantly, it helps us predict weather 3 to 7 days in the future. That means I can be a big help ahead of storms, where future warnings are important. I send information to the National Weather Service. They use the information to create forecasts. The forecasts are shared with people all over the country to help prepare for weather emergencies. So you look to the sky and wave. I'll be flying by.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Coastal water forecast tomorrow on the south coast of the Panhandle. Small craft advisories. East to southeast winds 25 knots. Central coast easterlies at about 20 knots. And the north coast winds will be out of the east-northeast at 15. Lynn Canal southeast at 10 for the day Thursday. Stevens Passage east at 10. And southeast 20 for Clarence Strait. And for Friday, Clarence Strait southeast at 15, and south coast east-southeast at about 15 knots. And the north coast here, east at 10, seas 5 feet. Prince William Sound, variable winds 10 knots, seas 2 feet. North Gulf Coast, variable winds at 10 knots, seas 3 feet. And for Northern Cook Inlet, southwest winds at 20 knots tomorrow afternoon, south 25 for the Southern Cook Inlet area, variable at 20 for Kamishak Bay, and southeast wind at 15 knots for the Barren Islands with seas at about 3 feet. For Friday, Cook Inlet, south to southwest wind, 20 knots, and southeast 20 knots, also for Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay, seas at about 5 feet. And for the North Gulf Coast, winds stay light and variable at 10 knots with 3 to 5 foot seas. Prince William Sound, about the same. Light variable wind conditions with slight seas. Kodiak Island, variable winds, 10 knots, seas 3 feet. Alaska Peninsula, west-northwest, 10 to 15 knots. And Bristol Bay, west at 20 knots with 4 foot seas. And for the day Friday, Alaska Peninsula, east-southeast winds, 20 to 25 knots. Bristol Bay, southeast at 20. And Kodiak Island, variable to south winds, 10 to 15 knots, and those seas running 3 to 4 feet. Eastern Aleutians, variable to southeast winds, 15 to 25 knots. Adak and Atka tomorrow, southeast at about 30 knots as that front pushes eastwards, and seas up to 8 feet. And then winds become behind the front, west-southwest at about 20 knots from Kiska to Shemya. And for Friday, western Aleutians, west-southwest winds, 20 to 25 knots. Central areas, southwest to 20, 4 to 8 foot seas. And for the eastern Aleutians, small craft advisories, south to southwest winds, 25 knots with 4 to 8 foot seas. For the southwest coast, west winds for the day on Thursday, running at about 20 knots here with seas roughly at about 4 feet. Pribilof Islands south at 15, 3-foot seas, and southwest 25 for St. Matthew Island. Good for small craft advisories there with 6-foot seas. And for Norton Sound, southwest wind at 15 with 3-foot seas, and west 20 for St. Lawrence Island. St. Lawrence Island on Friday, lighter winds, southeast at 10. Norton Sound about the same. Southeast winds 10 knots. South to southeast winds 15 to 20 knots for the southwest coast here, and southeast at 20 for the Pribilof Islands, northeast 20 knots, St. Matthew Island. And moving north up to the Arctic coast, west side, central and western Arctic coast, southwesterlies of 15 knots, Chukchi Sea, northwest or north-northwest, 10 to 15 knots, eastern Boulevard Sea coast, westerlies, 15 to 20. They'll swing around to east at 20 knots from the east-northeast for the eastern coast here, central coast, south 15, and small craft advisories for the western Arctic coast, south winds 25 knots. Chukchi Sea here down to the Bering Strait, southwest winds at 20 knots with 4-foot seas. For tonight, again, low pressure tracking slowly eastward here. Look for areas of snow, St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound, right up into the northwest interior, western Brooks Range, western central Arctic coast, and along this front extending up into the eastern Arctic coast. Dry to the south and southeast of that feature. Still areas of light snow over the Copper River Basin, especially the higher elevations, rain and snow showers up north of the Alaska Range, and showers diminishing over Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, and showers tapering off, but increasing chances of rain late tonight with that next system. And we'll see tomorrow rain, especially over the central and southern areas, lighter, more scattered amounts to the north. This system bringing a pretty good area of light precipitation into the interior with showers down into the Kenai Peninsula, and rain out over the Aleutians pushes into the Alaska Peninsula on Friday afternoon.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.